Fellas, this season was the perfect storm through buffs and artifact mods for Golden Gun to reclaim its title as the DPS king. There has never been a more powerful version of this solar super, and the damage numbers speak for themselves, with 999,999 damage being easily broken by Golden Gun combos. Titans and Warlock mains suddenly found themselves playing Hunter this season, and how couldn't you? That number is sexy. Unfortunately though, Golden Gun's hidden synergy has been destroyed. Today guys, I wanted to take a look at Golden Gun, but not just its damage. I want to look at what brought us to this point, the buffs, the nerfs, the bug fixes that Bungie has actually claimed they fixed in the past, but didn't quite fix, which is why we're going to be looking at the past to understand what the future holds for this super. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is that number, 999,999 damage. When we see that number, that stirs something deep within our loins. And believe me, fellas, even me, a diehard Titan main, found myself playing a little bit of Hunter this season, and it's because of that sexy number. Understand though that the damage is not actually capped. That's just the game not able to keep up with the damage values. Meaning you could still be doing over 1,000,000 damage and it will be reflected in the post damage screen. But the actual visual number you see is capped at that 999,999. Now that is the number we've been chasing throughout all of Destiny's lifetime. We were chasing it in Destiny 1 and we've been chasing it since the launch of Destiny 2. Now we got stronger and stronger, finally reaching that number until eventually Bungie actually lowered our values so less things would hit it. But throughout every sandbox and every change, I firmly believe if any one source should be able to reach that holy number, it should be Golden Gun with Celestial Nighthawk. And this season, it was slinging them out like it was nothing. But Golden Gun wasn't always this good. And in fact, for a long time, there were many other options. Supers like Thundercrash, Blade Barrage, Tether, Outclass, one of Destiny's IP-defining DPS supers. And that's where I want to start. We're going back to look at the numbers when people laughed at you for thinking that a super that requires aim would deal tons of damage, bringing us back to Witch Queen's season of the hunt. You see, Golden Gun was consistently holding down the rear. Thundercrash, Blade Barrage, Chaos Reach even were all doing better with their respective exotics. This trend of Goldie just being okay would continue as Arc supers were buffed with Arc 3.0 and Strand was released in Lightfall. But during this time, a bug appeared, one that would last for almost a year, and it allowed Golden Gun to start moving up in the ranks. That bug being Kinetic Surges. You see guys, when Bungie moves mods over to the 3.0 system, in the usual fashion, some funky stuff happened. One of these resulting bugs was that Golden Gun's damage would now be considered kinetic damage. This meant that the new Surge mods would actually increase how much damage Goldie put out. And this is no small amount, nor did it have diminished effects, as it fully benefited from each surge like a normal weapon would. At 3 surges, Golden Gun was dealing 22% more damage, which is no small number, especially considering how much Goldie was able to scale that number. With this effective buff, it moved past Thundercrash. It moved past things like Needlestorm. And finally, Golden Gun started to feel like an actual good super, something that would have had a real tangible impact on your performance. But this was Season of the Deep. But as we move into Season of the Witch, Bungie finally got around to addressing this bug. Quote, fix an issue causing the Hunter's Golden Gun super to benefit from Kinetic Surge armor mods. Now, when we read this, we just assumed Golden Gun was heading back down to the bottom of our list. But luckily for us, Bungie didn't quite squash this one, at least not completely. You see, Golden Gun decided it was still going to benefit from surges, but instead of benefiting from 3 Kinetic Surges, it would only benefit from 2. So with Season of the Witch, Golden Gun was actually doing 17% more damage rather than 22%. Now, a nerf is a nerf, obviously, but this didn't move the needle all that much. And I think most of us hoped that Bungie would just completely overlook this. But then we have Season of the Wish and our current sandbox. And this is where things got really nasty. A couple of things hit Golden Gun directly this season. The first and the most exciting was a buff to Celestial Nighthawk. After 6 years of absolutely nothing, Bungie graced it with a 25% increase in damage. It felt like Bungie was looking at Golden Gun's performance with the bug and decided that, hey, that's actually where we want the damage to be. But it seems they didn't notice that it still had that unintended 17% increase in damage from those 2 Kinetic Surge mods. And as we started to play around with the new artifact mods and the new sandbox, we got to understand that this was Golden Gun's prime. By having an artifact perk like Heart of the Flame, which can buff solar super damage by 40% depending on the activity, and then things like Revitalizing Blast, which is a free 15% debuff from solar abilities, Golden Gun had finally reached its most potent form. Celestial Nighthawk itself, which was actually being outperformed by Star Eater scales for years, was now back on top. Personal win for all my Golden Guns out there. Golden Gun, as a whole, was performing at peak amongst DPS supers. Above Thundercrash, above above Needlestorm, above Chaos Reach, above Gathering Storm as an instantaneous burst-in damage super. Golden Gun and Celestial Nighthawk became the king of DPS supers. And again, it's that one and done. And we're not even going to get into the other benefits of Celestial Nighthawk and the refund of the supers and the fact that you can get your super back really, really fast with this exotic as long as you're landing precision hits. Needless to say, guys, there's a reason why we've made multiple builds that involve Celestial Nighthawk this season, and it's because it's good. Pair that with Solar Surge, fellas, we're cooking. Through Grandmaster Nightfalls, Lost Sectors, Day 1, and Solar Warlord's Ruin, Golden Gun has been there for us. With that being said, though, update 7.3.4.1, which came last week, resulted in Bungie finally addressing this. Now, it was interesting because in the patch notes, Bungie said nothing. This was a shadow patch. One of the things that was patched was the permeability glitch that allowed us to stack 7 surges, where we would do a workaround with 3 weapon surges, permeability, and exotics like Foe Tracer. The other one was Golden Gun's ability to benefit from those 2 Kinetic Surge mods. Someone over there at Bungie finally figured out what was wrong under the hood. This was a fix they announced a long time ago, and it seems they didn't want to bring attention to it in another patch, or at least publicly, which results in Golden Gun losing out on that 17% increase in damage. Now, even though this hurts right now, keep in mind, we are still in the green this season. Part of the reason is because we still have that 25% buff of Celestial, and that's not going away. The other is the fact that we have things like Heart of the Flame with that 40% buff. Problem is that Artifact mod will be going away next season, which is going to suck for all Solar Supers, but especially for Goldie here, which takes us to reevaluating its position in the greater ecosystem. I'm going to start with our Solar Supers, most notably making use of Heart of the Flame. Celestial Nighthawk with Radiance is dealing 528,338 damage to Greg. Burning Maul with Pyrogale Gauntlets and Roaring Flames continues to deal more damage at 703,055 damage. Just below that is Blade Barrage with Star Eater Scales at 607,154 damage. Then moving off that, we have Thundercrash with our Yeet Exotic, which is actually considerably lower at 421,783 damage. We've got Gathering Storm with Star Eater Scales around 464,696 damage. Next, there's Needlestorm at 270,924 damage. And then we have Chaos Reach with Geomag, which hits for 574,559. Now, I know there's a ton of other supers we can test, and yes, we have done plenty, and I mean plenty of damage testing. But the point is to give you a snapshot of where Golden Gun is without that Kinetic Surge buff. But I also want to mention this is with the help of Heart of the Flame. Here's the damage numbers of our supers without the artifact. Blade Barrage and Burning Maul fall below Chaos Reach, and Golden Gun clocks in at 373,532 damage. Unfortunately, this puts our dear Golden Gun here back at the bottom of the pack. Now, I know most of you are like, Cross, it's a one and done super. It's a simple precision hit. It shouldn't even be doing 1,000,000 damage in a single Golden Gun shot. Here's the thing though, it's sexy. You gotta admit, man, it's a sexy thing to see. And if there's one thing I'm gonna remember about this season, it's what we've been able to achieve with Golden Gun. Hence why we're literally having an entire video here mourning for this super. Now, with all that being said, even though, yes, we do lose that 17% more damage from Kinetic Surges, number one, you could still reach that 999,999 damage. And number two, we still have nearly 4 months left of this season. So yes, RIP Golden Gun. And yes, to its most perfected version, we definitely have lost that, but you can still reach that beautiful set of 9s. Now I'm gonna take us to the first boss within Warlord's Ruin, which I know many of you are probably doing this season. In order to reach that 999,999 damage, first up, you're gonna need Celestial Nighthawk with Marksman Golden Gun. You're also gonna need Radiance, since Golden Gun does uniquely receive that 25% damage buff from Radiance. This gives us a base damage of 634,253. After that, if we tack on a 30% debuff to bring our damage up, that increases things up to 824,528 damage. Then we have the artifact mod From Whence You Came for a 5% damage buff against scorned enemy types, cranking our damage up to 865,754 damage. With Solar Operative, this increases our damage up by another 15% to 995,618. Now again, that's as a solo player. If you happen to be running with some teammates, you can substitute Solar Operative for Heart of the Flame to get us to 979,515 damage, at least here within the first encounter of Warlord's Ruin. Now to reach that final bit of damage, to touch that coveted 999 39,999 damage. I actually want to bring this up. Heart of the Flame can be utilized as a solo player. Now, I know this should be impossible. We actually think we found a glitch here. Again, this is a perk that shouldn't be able to be activated unless you're with the fire team. And when we wipe, as you can see here in the damage report, we're dealing 1,090,852 damage. Now, if we subtracted Tractor's 35,518 damage, Golden Gun's damage here is sitting at 1,055,334. That means when rocking Heart of the Flame while solo, Goldie is still getting a 6% increase, which is just enough to cross 1,000,000, bringing our total damage increase to 66.4%. So again, guys, I don't know what's going on here, but yes, Heart of the Flame is in fact proccing as a solo player. We're gonna look into this seemingly unintended damage buff further, but for the time being, we'll be using it. So that's where Golden Gun is today. My hope is that our next sandbox, Golden Gun will get another buff. And I know some of you are probably saying, Cross, it was just hitting way too hard this season. But once the sandbox evens out a bit, and there's no wild artifact buffing our supers, I would love it if Bungie went back in and allowed our Golden Gun shot here to keep that prestigious damage value. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.